What's up, everyone? Welcome to the EOS Fireside Chat for July 5th, 2023. Happy belated Canada Day to all the Canadians out there. Happy belated Independence Day to all the Americans out there. Hope you guys were able to spend some good times with friends and family. Now it's time to spend some time with your crypto family. So we've got a nice light summer show for you today. Potentially light, potentially long. We never really know. We've got 8 topics lined up, 3 special guests. We're talking about EOS EVM, incentive program, a new blog post, as well as a new app that's enabled the EOS EVM called Collectify. We're going to look a bit into that. Q2 Messari Report is out, the state of EOS. I went through it, highlighted some fun stats for you guys. EOS Go article summing up the Block 1 story was recently published, talking about the ongoing lawsuits. Boid has an article on improving data security. Zysan has a webinar on DAOs. They're partnering with Haifa to do this. Wharfkit is, of course, being built. As always, Aaron's going to give us some updates about that today. Zack Gal went on a Wavect Podcast, and the Eden election coming up this weekend. Only have a couple days left to register. There's new proposals from the current CDs, and we'll have Mo joining us at the end of the show to talk about this new proposal. And I've got a couple questions I'm looking forward to asking him. But before we get to that, we're going to go jump into our first topic of the day, EOS EVM. So although this may not be news for the regular Fireside listeners, the EVM Innovation Program, the EOS EVM Innovation Program, EEIP, offers financial support to dApps looking to deploy on the EOS EVM. We've talked a bit about it previously. There's a new blog post kind of clearing up some details and making things nice and easy for us to share with potential dApps that are interested in building on EOS EVM. So, couple highlights for you from this article. It explains how the EOS EVM Incentive Program, EEIP, not only offers financial support, but also additional resources to assist participants with marketing and development. This incentive program is intended to further extend the EOS Network Foundation's mission to coordinate financial and non-financial forms of support for EOS, while also complementing other funding mechanisms such as the ENF Grant Framework, Pomelo, and EOS Network Ventures. Continues on to say that it's important for these funding programs to exist as more projects embrace a multi-chain approach. This program ensures that the EOS EVM remains a viable option for deployment. And of course, they touch a bit upon the recent release of EOS EVM version 0.5, which will enable DeFi liquidity incentives through Yield Plus to further strengthen the ecosystem's potential. So nice little article here published by the EOS Network Foundation. Want to start off the show with that. If you're new to the EOS ecosystem, if you've heard of the highly performant EOS EVM and you want to deploy on it, the ecosystem is very welcoming. And there's lots of opportunities for these potential dApps. So let's spread the word, spread this article, and let's continue to see growth in EOS EVM adoption. Speaking of, Collectify is an application that recently enabled EOS EVM. So I'm going to share some links here in the chat. I'm going to share a picture as well, kind of what this looks like. And it's a social media contest tool blended with blockchain quests, which is very popular across the EVM world. And now that EOS has enabled the EVM, it's easy for these sites, for example, Collectify, to add the EOS EVM as the list of supported networks where anyone can go in, create contests, blending a mix of social media follows along with signing in with your EOS EVM account and performing specific actions on the blockchain. So right away, we see Math Wallet leveraging this new integration. Math Wallet, we talked about last week or the week before about how they recently integrated EOS EVM And now you can see them leveraging another tool that recently integrated EOS EVM, which is really great to see. And what's really interesting about these partnerships and these integrations on these platforms is that these platforms have a very wide audience, an audience that, for example, our social media accounts within the community may not be able to easily reach. While when they see these quests show up on these websites, it's much easier for them to be interested, doing some quests, getting their first EOS EVM account created, getting in there using some apps, and joining the ecosystem. So that's very cool. Fireman, welcome to the show. I'm going to give you a quick server mute here. And was that Zach I was hearing?
Yeah, just Math Wallet running the contest in general. I mean, they're running it through Twitter using the Collectify app, but the big thing is Math Wallet. They have 800,000 Twitter followers, so it's just really nice to see that the cooperations are going to be ongoing. But this is just the first. So Math Wallet, we already talked about it a week or two ago, like you said, but it's a really big wallet. I think it's the 10th or the 11th. I don't have the exact number in front of me. Wallet that's natively integrated the EVM. So that's a little bit different. There's different levels of integrations. Like, for example, MetaMask, you could plug in any custom RPC node and essentially you could integrate any EVM network, including testnets. But the difference with these integrations that we've been announcing with like Fox Wallet, Math Wallet, a lot of those other ones is that it's like natively integrated. So it's like in the drop-down list of chains that they support, the logos on the site. So just like a different level of support. And with Math Wallet in particular, we're running some cross promotions with them. And this is, like I said, the first of more to come. But, and then going back to the BD campaign, that the blog post was about a few hours ago. The big thing with that is it's tailored towards existing projects with existing user bases. So there's KPIs attached to the 50K. So there's different levels. So there's like a lower threshold and an upper threshold. To get to 50K would mean that they're going to be held accountable to different daily active users metrics, for example. Not all of that information was included in the blog post, mainly because we want all of the inbound leads we can get. And on top of that, we've been doing our own, like, this isn't a new program. We've talked about it on multiple fireside chats that is ongoing in the background. Our team's done traditional networking, in-person events, also bought email lists. So there's been ongoing conversations with dozens of existing projects for the last 2 months or so right now. Several of them are in the final stages. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll be able to roll out more announcements of bigger applications deploying to the EVM. So there's more things to do on the EVM. But I did want to specify that if you're like listening and you're a new project, then you're most likely still going to want to go through the grant framework. But the reason like the KPIs and everything weren't detailed in the post was because the general idea is to get as many inbound leads as possible. And then we have people on our product team who are keeping specific blocks of time open on their calendar to make it really easy to book time with them, to have intro calls with those projects. It's been taking up a lot of their time each week because they're actually taking the time to meet face-to-face with all of these different like Polygon and like Ethereum projects and things like that. So really exciting, but we'll have, I guess, news to share as soon as we're able to, and the deals are finalized and things like that. But there's several of them that are in the very final stages.
All right, thanks, Zach, for jumping in there with some more details. Exciting stuff. I'm personally excited to see, EOS EVM enabled on Collectify. I've been looking for some new ways to run some social media contests these days, and so this looks very interesting. We'll see what we can do with it. Anyone else out here maybe want to share some recent EOS EVM experiences, or if you have any questions for Zach maybe about these recent programs, now's the time to ask your questions.
see a question in the text chat. Liquid staking.
Yes. So I'm not knowledgeable enough really to touch this question.
So what I can say is we're also trying to finalize the EVM product roadmap. One of the features on there is something we've been discussing since before the launch, and that is the ability to enable the trustless bridge to move not just the EOS token itself, but additional altcoins, because that's one of the functions that wasn't in the MVP, but it will be in a future version. So that's really the missing piece for what would enable a liquid staking product. The ENF will not be building out any liquid staking product, because if we were to do like the tokens that are staked need to be basically like voting and participating in governance and things like that. So we're not really going to touch that. But there are already products like DeFi Box has the EOS token, for example, that's staked EOS. So once the trustless bridge does enable the additional altcoins, that would open up the possibility for a project with a staked EOS liquid staking token to get it whitelisted onto the trustless bridge. So the other piece of that trustless bridge is whenever it first rolls out with the altcoins, it will only work for whitelisted projects, just to kind of cover some security gaps. So Tether will obviously be the very first one. And then there will be a process in place of how more could get added. But I do hope to see a liquid staking product. I think that would be great, because currently all of the governance takes place on the native chain on EOS. And then if you have your EOS on the EOS EVM, it's not able to participate in REX, for example, or the voter proxies with rewards. So having a liquid staking product is something that I hope to see, but it's not something that will be on the ENF's roadmap in particular. But the function will be enabled with the next version of the trustless bridge that will roll out in the next, I don't know the exact time frame, but probably.
Maybe I should have asked earlier, but what exactly is liquid staking for those who may not be too familiar with that?
It's just a derivative of a staked token. So think of it like when you deposit, when you stake your EOS to vote, you can't move that EOS token. It's not liquid. You can't move it. You can't transfer it. You can't swap it. All liquid staking is you get a derivative token as a receipt for your staked position. And then typically if there's a liquidity pool for that staked token, you could swap in and out of it. You basically get the best of both worlds. You get liquidity and staking at the same time. There's definitely security trade-offs and governance trade-offs, but it's think of it like Lido staking on Ethereum. So staked ETH is like one of the most common versions of like the Lido version is the most common version of staked ETH on Ethereum. So people, you could hold that token and it's the same as having a staked ETH, but without giving up your liquidity. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. There's some recent drama, I think, of like the next evolution of liquid staking. I've seen some rumblings around there. I thought that's what we were maybe alluding to here. But liquid staking on EOS, yeah, seems cool. So next bridge features will enable projects to implement this if they want to, basically.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know if anyone else actually has one live, but DeFi Box does have one live, where you could stake EOS into it, and then you get the EOS token in return. I don't know if they allow that to be used as collateral, but that's a good example. Okay, so that's
I've actually done that. Yeah.
Yeah, so think of it like that. So you get more utility for your asset. normally you would be if you wanted to borrow against your EOS, which a lot of people do to lever up or whatever. If you're in a staked position because you're voting for WEX and to GenPool or the EOS Nation proxy, you can no longer use that token, that EOS token in DeFi, because it's in a staked locked position and it takes 3 days to unstake. So with like the DeFi box Vault, for example, you could stake your EOS into it. There's a withdrawal fee to get out of it. But you're able to basically earn the 5% yield on your staked EOS while at the same time having this liquid SEOS token. And there is a liquidity pool for it. So if you have a few $1,000s of it, then you can easily swap with like minimal, if any, slippage. If you've got like a position of like couple $100,000, I'm not sure how deep the pool is right now, then you'd have a harder time being able to instantly swap out of it. So in that case, you'd have to like send your SEOs token back to the pool and then wait some time frame before getting your regular EOS back. The same thing happens in Ethereum, even with super deep liquidity pools. Anytime there's major volatility, for example, the price of, because typically your staked token, your liquid staked token, and then the regular token should be relatively the same price because they really are the same token. But in times of volatility, when there's a lot of selling pressure on the liquid staked token, then the price of the staked position tokens can sometimes be cheaper or even significantly cheaper than the original asset itself. So sometimes speculators would actually buy up those tokens because the only risk is that there's a time frame to withdraw. So for example, if you could buy staked EOS for 90% of the price of regular EOS, then you would probably buy up those tokens and you could immediately start the unstaking process, which might take 3 or 4 days. I don't know what DeFi Box's rules are. But then you could basically collect that delta, knowing that you'd be open to the volatility that occurs during that unstaking period. But it does create a nice arbitrage opportunity.
Right on. Right on. Good stuff. All right. Moving on to our next topic, the State of EOS Q2 Messari Report. So this was released, I think, just a couple of days ago. Always nice to see Messari doing the deep dive into State of EOS on chain. Couple interesting stats that I noticed while reading the report here that I'm going to share with you guys. But of course, there's a lot more data contained in this report. So if you're curious, definitely click on over, scroll through, check out some of the graphs, of course. But some of the key insights that they share include, of course, the EOS EVM, sharing that the network so far has accumulated over 1 million in TVL, which I was aware of, and averaged over 5,000 daily transactions, which I didn't know. So that's some nice numbers to see in terms of daily transactions. They also talk about ecosystem growth initiatives that have been targeting GameFi and EVM-based projects. So that's some good marketing for, of course, EOS Network Ventures, and Pomelo as well is mentioned. And then they also follow up talking about the EOS native consensus upgrade that is coming in Q4 of this year and will bring near instant finality to the network. And, among other network and decentralization improvements, near instant finality will fully unlock the potential use cases of Antelope IBC, a cross-chain protocol that launched early this year. So That's very exciting. And I asked Noam from the UX Network, who's very familiar with this topic, if he wanted to come on today. He was busy today, but he will be joining us next week to talk more about this instant finality and some updates around there. So if you've got questions around this topic, if you've got technical questions, you can, of course, ask them to Guillaume next week. All right, if we scroll down a bit further down in the article, we've got later on here in the EOS EVM section saying that there's been, a net inflow of over 4 million EOS and then an outflow of 1.4. And then also there was the exploit that happened, which came in and affected these numbers. But from what I can tell, there's been over 1 million EOS tokens bridged over from EOS native to EOS EVM. The total bridging volume via multi-chain is $2.2 million. And so those were some of the stats that I found interesting in the EOS EVM section. Going back to EOS native, another big part of the network that doesn't get as much attention lately. So I was curious to learn that there's over 200 million EOS staked in voting for validators. That represents around 17% of the circulating supply. And there's an additional 107 million EOS that's staked but not voting for validators, which stood out to me. What else do we have here? Talking about upgrades and roadmap. Of course, they mentioned the EOS EVM version 0.5 that was launched, how it's also going to enable Yield Plus initiatives on the EVM. They talk about Antelope IBC, and as well, like I mentioned earlier, how the teams have been working to implement a modified variant of hot stuff BFT-based protocol developed by the Facebook team working on Libra. So that's part of the upgrade that will bring near instant finality that we can talk to Guillaume more about next week. Unless there's some other people that are very knowledgeable about the topic that want to jump in here and share some of your thoughts with the community, of course, always free to do that. Some other stats here that they highlighted was that there was an average of almost 200 daily calls for EOS IBC related contracts from an average of just 26 daily addresses. So still interesting to see. Of course, rounding out the top 6 contract groups by daily active addresses. This is back on EOS native. Got some classic names that we've seen around for a long time: Prospectors, Crypto Dynasty, Atomic Hub, and Wombat Dungeon Master, some of the more popular dApps on the EOS native side. And there you go, kind of some of the highlights from the Q2 report from Messari. So thanks for joining, everyone. Today's EOS Community Fireside Chat, whether you're live on Discord, tuning in from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever it is. Leave some comments, ask some questions, join me on stage here. We'd love to hear from you guys. Stay tuned until the end of the show. Always have the community open mic section, some off-topic banter. Some people sometimes sing. Make sure to keep spamming the chat with some emojis and some memes. Makes the show visually interesting for everyone. All right. Moving on to our next topic, EOS Go's recent article title is Block One's House of Blocks Crumbling. So again, nice article here that's going to recap a lot of things that we've talked about in previous fireside chats. So there's nothing necessarily new to point out here, but it is a well-written article by a team that is clearly very knowledgeable about the EOS community, about its history, and about Block One, and kind of walks the reader across some of the history behind some of the actions that Block One has taken that has led to the multiple class action lawsuits that have started against Block One. So wanted to share that article with you. Perhaps you know some friends of yours that incurred some damages due to failed Block One promises, and you want them to join the class action lawsuit. I know I've been messaging some of my friends that I know held EOS at one point. I emailed myself as well to sign up for the class action lawsuit. And so this article is a nice piece of information that you can share to some people that want to know more or are curious about why you're bugging them to join a class action lawsuit against Block One. So just wanted to point that out. See some ones in the chat maybe for people that have signed up for the current class action lawsuit against Block One. Here we go. Yves getting in there. The snap number one. Dave Rex, another number one. Zero Nova Crypto passing on this one. Moro's trying to multi-account the class action, getting in there 3 times. All right. I know, very controversial topic, but just wanted to point out this article and remind people there's still some time left if you want to show your interest. I think the email is legal@eosnetwork.com, and you just basically mention that you want to join the class action lawsuit against Block One, and that's all you need to do for now, and just show the support in terms of how many people feel this way. Not everyone feels this way, I understand. A lot of zeros in the chat too, a lot of ones, but a lot of zeros. There's even a 007. But yeah, just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on the topic. Feel free to share them. But yeah, I want to bring that up. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on the topic.
All right, I'll bite. I'll bite.
Free to share that.
Is my mic on? Yep. I liked the article, obviously. The one tweet that it highlighted in a screenshot was the one marketing spent in the next 24 months in April. Whatever, I don't have it in front of me. When it was said marketing spent in the next 24 months will like blow away the previous 24 months or whatever it said. In
April 2020.
Yeah, so if we just want to talk about timelines, that was April 2020. The very last code release of EOS IO, as we knew it then, was June 2021. So literally 13 months later was the last code commit. And then also within those 24 months was December 2021 was the very last tweet that the EOS IO account had made. It retweeted a Pomelo tweet. The very last tweet that account made, which is EOS IO marketing, was made in December 2021. And then that account went dark up until, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever the code from 2021 was released, almost 2 years after the fact. So just wanted to point out timelines there, just in case anyone's interested in keeping track.
There you go. Thank you, Zach, for that timeline context.
I read a week ago, maybe, through Telegram, someone was asking about the other class action that I think it's like Crypto Opportunity Fund brought. But I found it interesting. Anyone can join that class. The settlement seems a lot smaller than what I believe the ENF is going for. But if you join that class, then you waive all rights to join any future actions. So I was wondering if anyone here actually thought through whether, like, any decision there, like wait for the ENFs, that's kind of what I'm doing, or is that class, like, I guess I just don't know enough about what's going on. If that goes forward, will the ENF still have as much standing? Or what? I guess I'm curious what other people think about it.
Does Yves want to answer this question? I can give it a shot from what I understand. maybe not. From what I understand, the class actions are not about the same thing. Actually, one is about the token sale, and the other is about.
Can you actually re-ask the question? For some reason, I wasn't hearing anything for a very long time, and I'm not sure it's because nobody was talking or if it just wasn't coming in.
Yeah,
I got the end part of that, Robrico. You were talking about the two class actions potentially and kind of having to choose between one or the other. But I don't know if you were talking for 5 minutes or I only heard about 15 seconds.
That's generally it. I guess I haven't been following the first class action that closely, but I just noticed, they had a web page. Anyone could join that class action, but it seemed in the fine print, if you did, you were waiving all rights to any future potential actions.
You can't be part of two classes, and so I can't advise you as to what I believe would be in your best interests, but it is accurate that you cannot be part of two, and so that decision lies with yourself. All I can comment on that is I would advise people to try and get Block One to be held to account, whether it's in one class or the other. I think there is value in either, but that ultimate decision really falls on you as to what you believe is best suited for your particular needs. They are completely different, as Steph was saying. So one of them is much closer regarded to the ICO and to your personal holdings, essentially. So if I'm not mistaken, if there were to be a payout, it'll be proportional to what you necessarily suffered as a user. Whereas the class action that is now being drafted, let's say on this side of things, your holdings are somewhat irrelevant in the actual statement of claim. So whether you had 1 EOS or you have 1,000 EOS, for example, it's less so relevant because it's to make up the shortfall in the gap between what was promised and committed to in terms of deployment of resources in the ecosystem and ultimately what they did deploy. And so the sum is obviously much larger, and it's not necessarily directed to you as an individual in terms of how much you personally suffered based on how much EOS was valued at when you bought it or whatever it is, which is the first one is closely tied to that particularly. So it's very different, very, very different. One of them, the timeline is also very different. One of them is very closed. I don't recall the exact end date. You can go look at the website, but it really is more related to that purchase of the token within the ICO, and the other one is up until what we mentioned earlier, September 2021. So the time frame is much longer as well, and it encompasses damages that you would have sustained because of the promises that they made of non-deployment in the ecosystem. And so the value of your token, the utility or the token had less utility because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. So again, it's not necessarily the value of your token, it's you could do less with your token because they didn't do X, Y, Z. So it's a very, very different approach. But ultimately, you can't be part of two, so it's up to you to determine what you believe is best for yourself.
Yeah,
excellent. Thank you.
The one thing that changed with those emails that were kind of forwarded in some of the public chats was with the existing class action, the one that's been ongoing for several years now. With that recent update, they did open it up to new people to join it. So that was closed previously. Since whatever the cutoff date was, like November 2020, they cut it off. That was the big update, is that it was opened up for new class participants. So if you did not sign up in 2020, you'd have the choice to do so now. But as Yves has mentioned, there's no advice either direction. It's very personal to you as an individual. But the main priority here is holding Block One to account. and both of them fulfill that role. The difference is the ongoing one is a settlement $24 million spread pro rata by token weighted distribution, most likely by how much you owned. And then the other one is as Yves explained it. So either way, it's kind of working towards the same goal of holding back bad actors to account. But which way you decide to go is 100% a personal decision.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, that sum in the first class action, it felt reminiscent of when they paid the SEC fine. Like, sure, it's recovering some damages for folks, but it just seemed like, from my perspective, to be so small compared to how much Block One benefited from running away with the bag, so to speak. So I think
if you want to get
I know which
the
one
background,
I'm going to stick with.
If you go to the website that they just updated, it gives you, I believe it's in the FAQ. There's a really good, I think it's the first question in FAQ. It gives you a rundown on how that class came about. And really, the original idea wasn't a class action. So the idea wasn't that this was a class. It was, I believe, two groups of investors, and I don't know how many investors they comprise, but very small, two separate lawsuits merged into a class, but effectively we're talking about maybe dozens of people, probably less than that actually. And so it's positioned as a class action, but really it's not really a massive class. It really is a few individuals that have the majority of the weight, and they were looking for compensation for themselves, and it turned into a class action. Whereas the current file that is moving forward, really it is about the class. It really has to way more people, and the idea is obviously the bigger the class, the better it is, because the idea is the representation of the ecosystem, not individual investors. So it's a very, very different approach as well.
Got it.
Part of the feedback that was given when the settlement was rejected for the current ongoing class action was that it actually did not represent really a class, and it did not encompass what would be considered a class of enough people that got damages. So let's say it was you and three friends. Well, just because you're four people does not mean that you represent a class, unfortunately. Just not enough people.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful.
And the idea behind the class actions is power in numbers. So as Steph mentioned, the more people that show interest, the larger the class, the more weight it has. And so it's really not necessarily about how many tokens you have. Actually, in your case, for example, Rob, a lot of the damages that you may have incurred might not actually have to do with anything really with the EOS token. It might be with business decisions that you made in deploying capital and creating businesses on EOS because of the commitments that Block One made. You thought you're investing in an ecosystem that would be supported. And so it's not even the token itself, it's the business decisions that you made, which end up being, I don't know, payroll, development costs, etc. So it's not even the token itself. It's a very, very different approach.
I see. Another question following up to that. Is there a deadline that set already for people to join the class action the ENF is bringing forward, or can we expect as this develops, there will be, a similar sort of class action sign up info page?
Will be, correct. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So we'll release more information when it comes. But yes, as I mentioned, I think it was a month or so ago when I gave an update on this. These things take a lot of time, right? So the current class action, I think, is in its 5th year or 4th year. So that's the kind of timeline that you can expect. These things are very, very slow and very long. As more information comes available, you'll get it officially. And yes, at some point there would be an official website like this one. Although this one, if you look at it, the website is fresh. The website they had for years was really dinky, and actually that was part of the issue. is that it was difficult to ascertain whether or not it was even a real thing or not. And so if you recall, when it first came out 4 years ago, one of the big debates in the community was whether or not that was a scam or was it an actual thing. And so now with this new website, it does look more professional. Plus, the information that they point to is obviously more legitimate and such. But that was one of the issues, and as to why it was
Thank you for all the
rejected.
info.
Hmm.
I have family members and friends that want to join it, but I think I'm going to wait for that info page. Then I'll share it around.
Right now, like Steph mentioned, the best thing people can do is just show your interest. We already have hundreds of people that have signed in, and there's some updates coming. I did share some vague tweets in the last week about that, but there are some updates coming that should give a little bit more information on your end as to whether or not this is for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Yves.
Yeah, Zack just shared, I guess, one of these tweets talking about how multiple financing litigators firms are interested in picking up the case. Anything else you can share about that, or is that pretty much what you can share?
That's pretty much what I can share right now. I guess what I can share is kind of what this means, because some people still don't really understand kind of what the concept of a class action is. And so, and I saw that I guess in the main channel last week, some people are still uncertain about that. So in a class action like this, usually what you'll have is a law firm or multiple law firms. Their specialty is to form classes and to coordinate classes. As you can imagine, when you've got thousands of people in a class and you've got a big case, there's a lot of coordination that happens. And so there are law firms that specialize in this. This is what they do. This is all they do. They find interesting class actions and they fund those class actions. And so that removes the burden of the costs on the class participants. What they get in return is they get a percentage of the ultimate winnings if there are winnings. If there are no winnings, they basically run at a loss. They cut their losses short. If there are winnings, they get a percentage of it. And so to have financial litigators that are interesting, what that signals really is that there's something there. There's something to explore. They see a potential chance or they see a potential case, and they see a potential enough for them to be worthwhile taking the risk of funding this. And so we're currently in the process of vetting some of these firms, essentially looking at whether or not there's one of them that's a right fit that we'd want to appoint. Once you have that, then that firm essentially coordinates the class. And so others don't understand as well. When you're in a class, just like you said earlier, you essentially give your rights to the class. So that's why you can't be part of two classes. Essentially what happens is in this case, for example, the ENF, or in this case, the law firm, they don't have any legal rights. And so you assign them your legal rights to speak on your behalf. It's kind of like if you're proxying to them. The more people do that, obviously, then they own more rights, or they have the rights to more rights. It gives more weight so they can represent a full class. What the class decides to do with the potential winnings, how they decide to ultimately redistribute that, whatever that may be, that's for the class to decide. But the class moves as one. Somebody needs to coordinate that. There's a lot of logistics involved. The majority of the costs anyways in this is typically in-court costs. And so there's certain things like drafting statement of claims. Those can all be done beforehand. Those costs are in the large, grand scheme of things, incredibly small. The large costs are time spent in courtroom, the back and forth over the years. That is what is offset completely by the financial litigators that are essentially taking this risk.
Got it. Thanks for all of the context.
All right, Perry, you getting in here, or are we moving on to the next topic? I see some Perry is typing text.
I was going to type something up, but basically, I'm not on board with it. For me, it's a huge drain of resources. I could just think of so many places it could go.
But what about this financing litigator firm that may want to bankroll this because they think it's plus EV? I'd be fine with giving such a firm a percentage of the winnings in exchange for them, like you say, removing that cost and resources up front that the community may have to pay to get this going.
Well, having been raised by an attorney, and my uncle was also an attorney, and my sister worked in that business, I hear a lot of stories through my life, and the attorneys are the winners in these kind of things. They're really the winners. And it doesn't surprise me that many want to jump in. I just feel like the entire crypto community was born from something different. And I feel like this is a waste of energy of some of the, a lot of very talented people who are focused on making a difference, I hope, in our society in a positive way. And this doesn't seem to be the way. One question I didn't quite get the claim amount that you're seeking. I know it isn't. You haven't published it yet. I heard a number 24 million, but I don't know if that was from another lawsuit. But whatever that number is, if we could ask the attorneys to multiply that number times the probability of success, and then we can get that number, and then present that to the community in the fireside, I think that would be valuable information. Get the attorneys on here. Have them talk to us directly.
Yeah. I doubt that they would commit to a percentage, but I think it would be interesting to do that calculation. All right, I'm going to mute you, Perry, while you answer your phone. But thanks for jumping in here, sharing your thoughts. I think anyways, we'll just leave it there. I'm going to leave it there anyways. If anyone else has some thoughts they want to share, some questions on the topic, now sounds like a good time to jump in. Aaron Cox here, jumping in the chat, saying that the talent and expertise in the ecosystem isn't focused on this. It's not a distraction. I would agree with that. I copied, I pasted the template email that was shared on social media that I used to just signal my interest for this class action. And how long is it going to take you to copy the address, copy the email, edit your name in, and press send? A whole minute of your time really to just show interest at this point. So I think the cost at this point is fairly low. And I encourage you guys to do it if you feel like that's a personal decision you want to take. All right. Let's move on to our next topic. Speaking of Aaron, actually, that's who I want to talk to next. I'd love to get Aaron on stage here and learn about what's going on with Wharfkit. It's been a while since we've heard from Aaron and since we've heard of Wharfkit. I'm sure tons is going on, as is published every week on wharfkit.com. But I don't necessarily watch those meetings every week, so I'd love to hear from Aaron and to learn what's going on lately with Wharfkit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can focus in on the stuff that is getting done despite other things happening in parallel, like this class action.
There you go.
It's been going good. Just to put like a qualifier on it, from my opinion, we've been having these weekly meetings. We've been getting engagement from developers from like all the major chains in the coalition. as well as some other chains that are expressing interest in integrations and helping build out different parts of the platform. This project started, earlier this year, or maybe technically late last year. I think maybe the first milestone was even in October or November or something. It was designed to be a long project, but we kind of see the end goal coming into sight. The original roadmap put us finishing in September, I believe, and now that we just entered July, we're getting, real close to the end of this. Just today, we showed off in the call a preview of kind of the new website that's coming, the documentation that's coming along with it that'll welcome new developers to build on native. I guess maybe that's an important distinction for those of you who don't actually know what this project is. This is like the big development project that we're undertaking for the native side of things. It's been kind of going in the background. It's a big project. And we've just been kind of letting EVM kind of have the spotlight for a while, because that's everybody can jump in and people know how to work in this ecosystem, while we on the back end from the client side are kind of reinventing how apps for EOS and other analog chains can be built. This is, if you know the technical names of the stuff that we're using today, this is a replacement for EOS.js. It's a replacement for UAL or Transit, if you remember Transit. It's what does the wallet communication. It's what lets your dApps communicate with the blockchain, whether it's reading or writing data. And it really encompasses kind of the whole user experience when you are using an application. So there's a few apps out there in the wild that are already using it. You may have bumped into it if you've played with the bridge that the UX team put together. I think it's on Utility X. There's a couple other projects I know that have done it, and I forget the names of them right now. I should probably have a list of them. But I think we are now slowly hitting the point where some of the major components are done, and you're going to slowly start seeing some early adopters pick it up. And in your day-to-day EOS journey, you might start using Wharf, whether you know it or not. So far, the developer feedback of everybody that's adopting this has been really positive, which arguably was kind of a low bar, and we could easily meander back into the topics of the promises of Block 1 in this regard, just because we're replacing the technology that they built and then abandoned, basically. In the end, we're going to have this really robust system. It'll support multiple languages, all the wallets, and we're just taking all of that knowledge, wrapping it up into this new framework, documenting it really well so that developers are going to be able to come into the native side and build apps that we've never seen before. We, on our Wharf call, the Wharf call happens about 2 hours before this call does every Wednesday. And at the end of our Wharf call today, we wandered off into what a lot of people call transaction whitelisting, where you can use a dApp and not have to use your wallet all the time. It's just the dApp will do the transaction for you. And while that is it's not a part of the roadmap right now, it's something that our team and a lot of other people are really passionate about, that has been really hard to do previously, but now with Wharf as the platform that the kit that we're going to be using to build this, something like that's going to be much more possible. And I said it on the call earlier today when we were talking about this, we may have prototypes out by end of year for that, once Wharf is in a more stable position and we can start focusing on building on top of it. So there's decent amount of excitement going on, and it's a huge project. Our team's been, if you've noticed a lack of Anchor updates lately, it's because I would say 90% of our effort goes into Wharf right now, and has since the beginning of the year. So this is where our team's at. It's why we've been a little quieter than normal, why Anchor's been quieter, why Unicove's been a little boring, why Robo's not open sourced. All of our other stuff kind of took a backseat to this, because this is something that benefits everybody outside of our projects. And the coalition hired us to do the job. So yeah, that's where it's at. I could keep rambling, but I'm going to stop for a minute.
That was a nice initial ramble for sure. Thanks for the update. Good to hear about exciting things going on EOS native side as well. Even though I appreciate you letting the EOS EVM there take the spotlight for a little bit before EOS EVM comes back with an upgrade with even better user experience. Very cool. Anyone from the crowd have any questions for Aaron while we have him on stage here?
One thing I wanted to add, I think you were mentioning that you want to put EOS EVM sort of like in the spotlight and sort of not put attention to Wharfkit, but actually the new EOS EVM miner, essentially, because to push transactions with EOS EVM, you need to push into native. And right now the EOS EVM miner is actually using Wharfkit. So anytime you're pushing a transaction on EOS EVM, you're actually technically behind the scenes using Wharfkit to push that transaction, or at least the code that we're running is using Wharfkit. So it's a really good piece of tool for server-side application, and not only like client, like web wallet application. You can still build server-side application like Node.js or whatever. So really good job there, Aaron, and I'm sure we'll see Wharfkit in all sorts of little spots, server and front-end clients.
Yeah, when you shared that with me, it was exciting to see that sort of application. And I never thought about the implications like you just described it. Like people under the hood using the EVM might actually be using Wharf. And they're not going to realize that, but that's just how kind of a fundamental piece it is of native, or it could be of native, based on the developer's choice who are building those applications. And so far, it's just it's been positive, like the positive words you just shared as well.
Actually, everybody who just joined this chat that used the pop bot, the NFT pop bot, has now used Wharfkit, because that uses Wharfkit behind the scenes.
Awesome.
So even the Discord bots are using Wharfkit to push transactions.
Yeah.
So, it's really easy to use. So good job.
Thanks. It's going to be invisible in a lot of ways like that, and that's super cool.
For sure.
All right, I guess nice little transition to the PopBot chat. I don't think I mentioned it earlier in the show. I think it was in the pre-show where I mentioned it. But like Denis just mentioned, we got some new features here on the PopBot chat. For the end user, should not change anything. You just go to the PopBot channel /register, write your EOS account name. You get signed up to receive your POP tokens every week. Now the bot's going to be able to distribute these for me fairly automatically at the end of the show, so that's awesome. And we're also going to be able to whitelist other EOS community members that host EOS events and not want to distribute POP tokens to the attendees of those events. So that should streamline the process there as well. Good news in terms of our blend page. Now, these topics went a bit longer than I thought. And the raffle ticket minting is now closed for the month of June. But the blend page, in order to do those blends, is back up and running. I think I may have mentioned it last week. But if you want to get into the July monthly raffle, you can do that on our blend page. I'm going to share the link here. And a shout out to EOS Detroit with the Detroit Ledger Technologies, letting us use their Atomic Assets API to get our blend page back up and running. Looks like you may still be able to blend the June raffle ticket, which has me a bit worried because it should have been off a few minutes ago. We'll see. Maybe if you want to blend more June raffle tickets, you can do so until the end of the show, actually. We're not going to be distributing the prizes today. We're still kind of getting our feet back under us with these NFT disruptions that have happened on EOS Native over the last couple of weeks. Almost all of the tools I need are back online. We've got Denis helping out. We've got Rob from EOS Detroit as well. Anyways, we're getting back ready. We're going to change the distribution method a tiny bit for these pop raffle tickets. So we're going to be creating these mystery boxes every month. We're going to be sending those mystery boxes to everyone who holds a raffle ticket, and then you can choose whether you want to open your box. In there will contain at least one prize of 50 EOS, 20 prizes of 10 EOS, some EOS Moments crates, some EOS Moments capsules, and some party crackers as well. So that's what we're going to be doing going forward. I think it's going to be a bit more fun, more exciting way to distribute these prizes. And we're just putting the finishing touches on the system, so you can expect your June raffle ticket prize to be in your account sometime over the next week, definitely before the next Fireside. So there you go. Go to PopBot Chat, register for your Pop token today, and then earn some fun prizes for showing up to these EOS community events. All right, moving on to our next topic. Got a couple quick hitters for you guys before we get to our final topic of the day, which is going to be the upcoming Eden election and the Eden on EOS bylaw proposal. But before we get there, we got two more topics to discuss, three more actually. First up, Zack Gal was on the Wavect Podcast earlier this week, or last week, I believe. Always good to see our top community representatives like Zack getting out there and spreading the word about the EOS story to other communities. I know that's something that they've mentioned in the recent firesides that they're going to be doing more of. I don't know, Zack, did you have anything to add about this particular podcast that you did?
Not too much. So we got in touch with them because one of our PR teams happens to work with another client that works with them. The Wavect themselves, they are an Ethereum-based developer studio. So they work under a white label typically for a lot of other EVM projects, even if their name's not necessarily on the project. So that's how we got in touch with them, and they have they kind of came across the EOS EVM and were interested, wanted to talk about it. We learned that they happen to have a podcast, and then it turned into, well, if I'm going to tell you about the EOS EVM, like, why don't we do it over recording? So that's what we did. So they do have a YouTube channel if you want to watch the video version, but their main place where they get a lot more downloads is on Spotify and iTunes. But you could find it's available everywhere. Interesting conversation, though. The host really didn't have a whole lot of insight into EOS or the EVM or anything going on behind the scenes. And we had only planned to go, I believe 30 minutes was the goal for the interview, and it went close to an hour. And then even after the call, we stuck around and chatted for another 10 or 15 minutes. So they might, as a developer studio, might be coming through the ecosystem and a number of different ways that they could take. But yeah, just a fun little conversation. Most people on this call, they're not going to hear anything new that they haven't heard before. But as we've said before, like, you're not necessarily the target audience. If you're on this call, rights for the. Sorry, I don't know what that was. If you're on this call, you pretty much get the scoop as it's happening. Whereas with a lot of these external-facing media opportunities, whether it's AMAs or podcasts, like the audience is not EOS token holders or people paying attention to the EOS ecosystem. It's people who aren't, and that's kind of the goal behind these opportunities. And there's more to come. So even I have a call this evening, for example, with Invest Hong Kong. They'll be hosting an AMA at some point this month to discuss some of the things going on with the ENF and with Invest Hong Kong. So that'll be exciting. There's a few others. It's just a matter of scheduling them and assessing their audience sizes and things like that. And yeah, hopefully more of this to come. Hopefully every week we'll be able to talk about some other interview or AMA. But most likely, it won't be anything new necessarily for you all on the call, but it's still exciting to see that we're getting out there and reaching audiences outside of our own echo chamber, and that's really the goal with these.
And what I find personally interesting is these little stories of how the interview happened, or how it went, or was there a particular topic that really surprised them and resonated with them? You know, the fact that, like, the way you describe it, you know, seems like the interest just kept growing as he learned more about EOS. Like, oh my God, okay, I need to learn. Okay, what about this? And then next thing you know, it's an hour and a half discussion with some potential future actions too. So I personally love hearing those stories, those backstories. Even though I never listen to those podcasts, sorry to say. But like you say, the fireside is often...
You of all people would not learn anything new, so...
No, but I am curious to see the reaction of these people as they hear about this stuff that, you know, I've been talking about every week. So I am a bit curious for that reason. But all right, thanks for sharing, Zach. Fireside is first class for the big news. That's right, Patrick. Alpha drops in the Fireside every week. All right. Moving on to our next topic, Zysan holding another webinar, this time all about DAOs, partnering with, of course, Haifa DAO. Should be another good educational piece of content from Zysan on the Antelope ecosystem. So wanted to throw that up on the board for today. Maybe we'll get someone from Zysan on a future show to come talk to us about this webinar a bit more, although it is scheduled for July 12th, so I think that's in exactly 1 week, so probably next Wednesday before the Fireside. So if you're interested in unleashing the power of a DAO, tune into that webinar for some information. All right, moving on to our next topic. We stumbled across a new article from Boid.com. John was on the Fireside a couple weeks back, explaining that they're interested in publishing some more general crypto articles. So nothing new in here, not even about EOS really. It's more a general crypto article. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up actually is because it kind of got me thinking, and it made me appreciate kind of taking a step back, going back to the basics, going back to like 5 years ago when I first joined this industry and why I got into it. So the article talks a bit about, you know, what is distributed computing, where there's, you know, a network of interconnected devices or nodes that work together to perform data processing and storage tasks. Standard stuff for all of us. It goes on to say a bit about how distributed computing and blockchain can improve security and privacy. And then it lists 4 aspects here. And I was curious to see how I thought, you know, EOS fared in these 4 aspects. I'm gonna just share this little section here as a screenshot in the chat. But real quickly here, you know, resistance to cyber attacks made me think about the fact that EOS as a distributed network has been running for over 5 years now, I think it is, without any downtime, which seems like it definitely, you know, checks the box for resistance to cyber attacks, or, you know, just being able to be on all the time. Enhanced privacy. This is more talking about how private public keys work, of course. Maybe think about the account system on EOS and how that is very powerful and allows you to maintain your pseudo-anonymity in easier ways through all the robust account permission systems that you can implement. This next one here, C, verification and transparency. What this got me thinking of was, of course, everything's transparent on the EOS blockchain, like all the other blockchains, but the verification aspect for that data on the EOS blockchain has actually been a bit of a challenge sometimes because there's so much of it, because the network's so highly performant, there can be so many transactions, makes it for some very bulky data storage. And as a developer on EOS, most are familiar with the struggles of data history. Regardless of the solution, the current solution that's offered right now, these are big, bulky data history solutions that are kind of hard to run. And then it made me think of the upcoming Firehose and Substreams technology that the Pinax team is working on bringing to EOS Network and to the Antelope ecosystem, and how that will enable easier verification of all of this data that we've accumulated over the last 5 years and make it easier for dApp developers to go back in the blockchain history and find the data they need. And then the last one, the elimination of intermediaries, kind of just general blockchain stuff. So it was a light article, not necessarily directly related to the EOS, but it was kind of a light show today, not that many big topics on the agenda, so I figured why not add this and share kind of my perspective as I read this article. All right. That brings us to our final topic of the day. Eden elections coming up. New Eden on EOS bylaws. What does this all mean? Who's going to show up this Saturday? Let's talk about it. So let's see here. Is Mo available to join me on stage as one of the chief delegates for the current Eden season? I've got actually went over the proposed bylaws and had a couple of questions for Mo. So I'd love to get him on stage here, hear what he has to say, and then hear from everyone else as well. I'm sure many of you will have comments and questions about all of these proposals that the chief delegates are bringing. All right, welcome to the Fireside, Mo. How are you doing today?
Hey, Stephane. Hey, everyone. I'm good. How are you guys? How are you doing?
We're good. An hour and 20 minutes onto our last topic, right around the time that you said would work best for you. So let's see how long we go. Let's see if we make it 40 minutes to the 2-hour mark, or maybe we blow past that. Who knows? Grab your popcorn. Let's get into it.
Yeah, well, feel free. Did you want to ask some questions or read out the mission statement? I believe you had.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Let me read out the mission statement here. So first of all, let me share the link to the bylaws in case, although Patrick may have done that already, maybe not. Here, I'm just going to share it as well. And then you can kind of easily see what's changed from last season through the highlights, which is well appreciated. And then it's a fairly lengthy document, 32 pages. But I'm going to try to read the intro here that kind of recaps the mission statement, and then we'll go from there. Here, I just posted it in the chat as well. So, Eden on EOS DAO, the purpose paper. First section, mission statement. So the Eden on EOS DAO is dedicated to increasing the value of the EOS community by directing its human and financial capital, seeking out and incubating potential value generators, and leveraging its assets to support this endeavor. A, Eden on EOS DAO as a risk-on sandbox fund dedicated to investing in risk-on projects that will bring value to the EOS ecosystem as per specified objective metrics. B, investing in / seeding the growth of DAOs. C, incubating / accelerating projects and DAOs. D, focus on accomplishing the above for the objectively verifiable and measurable benefit of the EOS ecosystem, while whenever possible proposing and looking to fit the Eden upvote model as a solution. So, for those of you who may not be as familiar with Eden as others, this is a fairly big change from how the Eden on EOS community or system kind of operates or is aligned right now. So maybe Mo, if you want to talk a bit about kind of what this means, what the vision is for this proposal, and what you think the benefits would be.
Well, thank you for reading that out. And I know it's a little bit dense in terms of understanding all of the ideas that are being put forth. It's, well, if we look back, we can kind of see that the Eden model has done an excellent job at selecting the members of our community that are reputable and that we can trust, right? I think that has been proven out to be fairly accurate. In terms of allocating funding, it's also done an excellent job in distributing the funding over the last 2 years. All of the members that have been voted for have received their funding and gone about utilizing them as they were elected. Unfortunately, where we see that it hasn't been as impactful as it could have is in collaboration. So maybe it's part of the system where, because of its decentralized nature, people just go out and do what they promised to do essentially with the funding. But in terms of having an organization that we would like to see act cohesively, that hasn't so much played out as we would have hoped. So there has also been different ideas about what this organization was meant to be. Throughout the last 2 years, different people have had different views as to how to leverage this system for whatever purposes they thought would be best. That has also caused a bit of tires spinning in place, you could say. So over the last 3 months, what we did was kind of build on the shoulders of people like Nathan and Joshua, who the 3 months prior to that were already investigating into what the community thought the purpose of Eden was. Nathan James and Joshua Seymour, I'm sorry, to be more specific. So we went ahead over the last 3 months and started strategy workshops where we were collecting members into workshops led by Gabriel Shaw, who's at Haifa now, also, and trying to figure out what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, and how to leverage these strengths for the benefit of what we hope will be our continued funders, which is the EOS community, which is why we were brought together in the first place. So we were seeing that, as I was saying before, as a worker proposal system, a fund distribution mechanism, a form of selecting trustworthy individuals, we've done a fairly good job of that. So how can we leverage that into a position where we can benefit the EOS community? And the basic idea that kept coming forward was the WPS, was the sandbox idea. So basically, we went to work into getting this vision formulated in a way where it could be proposed and carried out by the Eden community, integrating also some of the, I guess, Haifa structures, such as circles, and the fractally methods that were also developed, the fractal process, where we're allocating funding to individuals based on work that's already been done. We've also changed the fund distribution model in terms of paying the delegates after their term instead of giving them up the money beforehand, and aligning everyone, all of the delegates being elected, not so much for the projects that they will be pitching, because At this point, we're asking them not to pitch projects, but to pitch themselves as reputable members of the community that are willing to carry out the work needed to benefit the EOS community, which at this point, in the way that we're envisioning the direction of Eden on EOS, it's to bring on projects, go out into the world, scout and recruit projects, and bring them onto the EOS ecosystem, and through our incubator, which we hope we can build into Eden on EOS. Also helping the community out in that way. Are there any questions? Stop me if I ramble a little bit.
A couple questions. No, feel free to pause whenever you see fit. I'll jump in. Anyone else from the crowd wants to jump in, feel very free. Share your questions in the chat as well if you want. So you say that delegates are in this new proposed system. Delegates are not expected to pitch projects, but instead pitch themselves. So who's going to either decide or determine what kind of work the delegates are going to do in that scenario?
The delegates are expected to do just that: recruit projects, bring them on into the EOS ecosystem, bring them into the incubator, and maintain the relationships with those projects, and some other. So
everyone's pitching the same project, basically recruiting new projects to the EOS ecosystem. That's basically the one project that everyone's pitching. The differentiator is like, hey, I've got a network, I'm well known, you guys have seen me out there on social media for the last 5 years, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, their ability.
Yeah. Okay,
their
very
ability
cool.
to projects, yes.
Yeah, very interesting concept. Obviously, very radically different than what we have right now.
I wouldn't say it's so radically different in terms of what we're planning on doing is leveraging the governance nature of the Eden process for the benefit of the internal governance structure of Eden on EOS. And firstly, executing that, as well as centralizing the funding in terms of projecting it and focusing it on specific projects that are decided that they are for the benefit of the EOS ecosystem, with KPIs such as, for example, saying this project has the potential of bringing on 1 million users. This project has the potential of maybe being a unicorn and being $1 billion company. So depending on the KPIs that are established, we can then go out and search for these projects, bring them on, invest in them, and decide the value that's being generated by the independent projects, versus having this situation where different people are pitching different cases, being selected for those. And it's not to say that value hasn't been created by Eden on EOS. It has. It's just been a diffused value that has not been as impactful as it could be if we were able to leverage the wisdom of the crowd by having those delegates going out and searching for these projects and bringing them on, because that's also a decentralized way of deciding what projects get funding. But instead, we've kind of gone every which way, scattered out, and not focused on any specific project or value proposition, I guess.
All right, awesome. Yeah, we've got some positive feedback in the chat so far. Let's see here. We got Lenny and Patrick sharing a bunch of educational links. Aaron Cox here saying it's electing for leadership of this worker proposal system, WPS, rather than electing for what project individuals want to build. Yeah. So that's why I said it's a radical shift, because from my perspective, as someone who's going to join the election and hope to get elected for the first time, I need to change my pitch, or maybe not this election cycle. So I guess this election cycle, really the main topic will be, are you going to ratify these bylaws or not?
Yes.
Because then I feel like this is a pretty big change. And so feels like this might be a dominating topic.
That's the first question. The second question is, are you willing to commit to these to this vision, to these bylaws, to the purpose paper? Because at this point, we don't have we're not funding code. So we're not doing a code change. Everybody that gets elected is going to voluntarily give up the funding for the circles and for the fractal delegate meetings and such. Fund distribution in terms of investment for projects won't happen until the next season. So not in this season, but the next one, where what's expected from these delegates is also to go out and recruit projects and bring them on, and to show that commitment to this vision. At that point, we can make the case that the community is united behind the vision. We are acting on the process, and we can clearly state that that there is a case for it. Until that's seen, there's no point in building code or unlocking funding that is not that shouldn't be unlocked at that time.
Right on. Mel from EOS London saying that he loves this idea. Aaron Cox bringing up the point that if we want something like the Eden upvote election process, etc., to be able to run organizations like even on the EOS or even the ENF, this is a potential step forward in that it helps prove the system to elect leadership. I agree with that. I like that you're proposing a more concentrated focus for Eden. I agree that it's been kind of lacking focus, although I was very excited for having funding mechanisms available for people that wanted to build all sorts of stuff when Eden started. That may not be actually what's most needed for the EOS community. And so I think that a small pivot like this, which from a pitching perspective is a big pivot, because now I've got 3 days to prepare kind of my pitch with this new information. And so that actually leads me to another question is, how long after the election are people expected to ratify or not the proposal? Because I feel like a lot of people are going to show up to the election and may not be fully informed on this proposal, and will maybe have to kind of learn on the fly in the room, or perhaps do some research after being elected.
Yeah, first of all, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to join you tonight. That this is really a great opportunity to reach out to the community and let them know that this pivot is happening, and that this is what the proposal is going to be for the election. We're also going to take the time, or we plan to take the time before electing, or before the election actually goes into the election, an hour before, to do a presentation where we present the bylaws, the purpose paper, and the dispute resolution, so that the community has an idea of what is being proposed and what they're expected to ratify and what they're expected to vote for. So also, like you're saying, you already had an idea of what you were going to pitch, but if that's not what this election is going to be about, then everyone that shows up to the election and wants to be a delegate needs to understand what commitments and what responsibilities they're going to have to carry on if they get elected. So there may be people that might decide at the last minute, hey, if it's not about a project, then maybe I don't want to be a delegate, and that's fine. The idea here is also where the creation of these circles, right, these working groups that are going to be structurally important to Eden on EOS. And they're going to have funding. So we want Eden members to not only show up once every 3 months, but to stay engaged in the community throughout the 3 months and have means of being productive and contributing to the community through these circles, and receive funding for it, of course. So it's a bit of a pivot, but it's I think a more comprehensive approach to creating a community organization. I think we want to find a place for everyone, I guess.
All right, a couple more questions. So you're saying that delegates are expected to forego the funds that they're supposed to receive. So I imagine they're going to be resending that EOS to another account. And then the other question around there is, are delegates expected to earn income for being elected as a delegate and going out and trying to recruit projects? Is there a salary for this, or is it on a, like, if you successfully recruit projects, you get a commission or something?
Right. So delegates are going to be they're going to earn they're going to get to keep 25% of their funding, of what the current funding distribution is. The rest of it they're going to send to the working groups and to the delegate fractal process meetings. Once a week, they're expected to show up at these meetings and present the work that they've done and justify why they believe that they should receive the highest score, or how productive they've been over the past week. And in that way, you'll have meetings where the fund allocation will allow delegates to be able to earn funding on a scale per week.
So the funding that delegates give, that 70%, that 75% they're expected to give to the pool, they have a chance to earn it back, basically, during these fractal meetings.
Correct.
And so it's going to allow the system to allocate more resources to the really highly performing delegates.
Exactly. So from one end, we're also incentivizing people to work harder and stay engaged in the community. And at the same time, what we're also proposing is that if you bring on a project that goes through the incubator, is performant and a viable project that ends up getting funding, you'll also receive a share of equity in that project once that project issues tokens. Somebody's typing.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mute myself. I was taking notes, actually. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. So basically, the delegates are incentivized via that share of the tokens that the projects will be issuing if they get funded, if they are viable and keep receiving funding. So in that way, they're incentivized to go out and bring the best possible projects on into the network. Because otherwise, if they don't get funding, if they don't graduate through the incubator, then there's no incentive for them to bring them on. Well, other than the salary that they get from being an active delegate. And from that end, we can justify those funds being paid out to them because they're still bringing people onto the network and introducing new people into the ecosystem. So it's really a positive any way you look at it.
I gotta say, Mo, I am impressed. I like this a lot, actually. And the more I learn about it, the more I like it. For me personally, it checks a lot of the boxes that I wanted for Eden, right? So there's a lot of talk at one point is Eden supposed to be a WPS or no? Is it supposed to just be a way to allocate funding, right? Or is it supposed to have other goals? I feel like this is kind of cementing the fact that it is a way to allocate funding, but also focusing that funding to a singular purpose, onboarding new dApps on EOS, which checks another boxes of mine for Eden on EOS, is that this organization needs to be primarily focused on bringing value to EOS, right? If it's funded with EOS tokens.
Yes.
So I like that a lot. I like that there's a salary for delegates now. So I was always campaigning on paying myself a salary, but when others have the option of campaigning on receiving no salary, it's very hard to get elected as someone that wants to take a salary when these people have options to take people that are willing to do it for no salary. But then, in my opinion, the game theory leads that you basically have to do a proposal where you don't take a personal salary to have a shot at winning, which means that the people that are able to really win are people that are in a financial position where they can afford to volunteer 5, 10, 20, 40 hours a week towards a particular project without taking personal salary. So having a minimum salary for delegates, even though it may not be very much, I don't know how the math works out, but just having that little base, I think is really nice, and I think may attract more people to want to do this role and then so for this base salary, you've got the minimum KPIs that these delegates need to hit. Hey, you need to attend this many meetings per week, per month, based on these different levels, these different positions, as I read through that paper. So I like that. And then I like that there's also incentives for high performers. So if you're super motivated, get out there every week, report back to the crew and have your peers vote on your progress. And our superstars are going to be able to be rewarded and therefore incentivized to go out there and do great work. So yeah, I like it. I like it.
I'll go one step further and say that it also creates an incentive and a reason for more people in the EOS community in general to join Eden on EOS and have that outlet for contributing to the community. So if you know a project, if you're out there, if you have connections with projects, now you have a reason. You can join the Eden on EOS community and have a reason to also get paid to bring them on, to recruit them. If anyone is just sitting on their hands right now and wondering or waiting for someone else to do all of the work, well, I think it's kind of a good moment for the entire EOS community to pitch in and do as much as they can for this network.
Excellent. All right, I had a couple more questions. One I didn't write down, and now it slipped my mind. The other one I had was regarding to circle leadership, how those workers are determined, what portion of the fund, I guess these circles is the mechanism to distribute the 75% that is donated, right?
Right.
And the workers within these circles must be delegates in order to qualify to get paid to do work for these circles.
No, if you're a member of Eden, there's going to be different tiers. So we're also going to be incentivizing people to be active members of Eden and show up to elections. And one of those ways is by, I guess, what would you call it? What's the word I'm looking for here? We want people that have been in the community long enough to understand how this works a bit so that they can basically do the jobs more with easier fluency, I guess.
The technical term is community OGs, I think is what we're looking for.
There you go. Community OGs. We want the community OGs. So if you've just gone into Eden, you can still be a member of a circle. Because what we value there is the work that you're putting forward, right? And that's what you're going to get paid for that work. So you don't necessarily have to have any sort of a civil process that you go through, because if you're someone and you're giving work and you're getting paid for that work, well, then everyone is aligned in those instances. So from that end, we're not expecting anyone to do more than that, to just be a member, to get inducted. And that also incentivizes them to be part of the community and want to participate in the elections and get their account upgraded, per se. So once you're someone that's been at an election, you're civil checked in those terms. And in that case, well, now you qualify to become a lead or an organizer or a secretary, because you also are more familiar with the process. You've been around long enough to be more familiar with how things work. So we have qualifying standards for those, and they allow you to also get a greater share of the funding.
All right, so let me see if I understand this clearly. That 75% that is allocated to circles can be earned by either Eden members or Eden delegates. Kind of everyone's on an equal footing in terms of showing up to that practically meeting, sharing what they've done this week, and getting rewarded by their peers. Is that right?
Yes. A delegate or any member can show up to a circle meeting. Let's say, for example, it's a communications and media circle where there are content creators for Eden on EOS, and that's what they're doing in that circle. So you have your lead, your organizer, your secretary, who are getting a larger share of the allocation per meeting, and you have your normal people that are Eden members that are also showing up, and based on their work, they're getting ranked accordingly and getting a share of that of their allocations. So you could show up to those meetings and actually have the least amount of work done and still get something. So it's really a question of just getting people engaged and involved in those meetings, and getting leads and organizers that are also aligned with the vision, holding people accountable.
I like it. I like it.
And if you scale it one level up higher, we still have the possibility for the chief delegates to allocate the funding per circle depending on what they're valuing and what they feel is more important at that time. So they might be giving the communications and media circle a greater amount of funding if they feel that we need more content creation, and the tech and dev circle less funding one season, while it might be the opposite in a different season to incentivize more participation in one circle or another.
Very cool. Very cool. Loving the game theory and the incentive-based rules that you guys are proposing. Yeah, very, very exciting. Also, another thing I want to kind of clear up is you mentioned different levels for Eden membership. So in the paper, it defines like, hey, are you a member of Eden or are you an active member of Eden, right? And to be an active member, you need to hit these clear metrics, such as showing up for 3 of the last 4 elections and other things like that. So again, I like that you guys are incentivizing specific behaviors that's going to be recognized that unlocks greater utility for those members in the community.
Yeah, definitely. We need to incentivize people to be active in the community, to stay engaged, and to get to know each other as well, to network, because all of this ends up creating a stronger community.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Anyone else want to jump in here? Share your thoughts. I've been talking a lot this show. I think I'm gonna hang up the mic at this point. Let you guys share your thoughts.
One thing I'd like to add real quick also is we're really appreciative of everything the ENF has done with Haifa in terms of funding them and getting them to where they're at. And we're hoping to also leverage Haifa and their technology and their tooling to also make all of this possible. And just to add a little bit more to that, let me also extend my appreciation to the Eden Fractal team and what they've been doing, because we're also leveraging or planning to leverage and see how we can incorporate some of the tooling that that their devs have created. So it's really interesting how all of the tools are on the table, and it's just a question of putting them together.
I've got a few questions, Stephane.
Yes. What's up, Perry?
Hello. Well, I've been attending a lot of these meetings, and so I'd like to add a little feedback, a few questions that I've got. One question would be the distribution of ICO tokens versus the regulatory risk that we might face with that. So my understanding is the delegates, as a reward for bringing in new projects, they would be rewarded ICO tokens. So even though I personally think ICOs are a great thing, and I don't like the fact that they've been stymied by regulators, that's kind of a reality that we have to face. So that's one issue. And then another issue that I have is the fund distribution. I'd really like to see a spreadsheet that manifests all of these rules and shows us exactly where the money would be going in an example. Like, for an example, what this diagram is not showing is that the circle lead, secretary, and organizers are going to get double dipped on a double dip fixed amount on their ranking. So although they're using the Fibonacci ranking, they're not actually using it in that case. They're getting they have a set amount. They're being set the top rank for the lead, and the secretary and the organizer are getting the second Fibonacci ranking. Without, no matter what, and then as they are ranked within the group, they get that ranking as well.
Well,
Maybe
Perry, can I answer? I think I get the gist of the question. In terms of the ICO and the regulatory aspect of this, first and foremost, we've already mentioned in the purpose paper that it's a risk-on sandbox. So we're prepared. The people that are going to move forward with this are already prepared and envisioning the idea that there's going to be risk on the table. The second part of this is that none of this works if the KPIs aren't met in this coming season. So if we have a community that's dedicated to this vision and committed and votes for delegates that are committed to this vision, one of the points that is mentioned in the KPI is to get the regulatory aspects of this clear for all of the members to be able to decide whether they want to continue with this after this coming term. So the sooner we have that, the better. But it'll be it's definitely something that has to be evaluated and decided, and a question that needs to be answered, which has been asked in terms of DAOs since day one with Eden. And Haifa has also had this question asked, and many DAOs have had this question asked, as we've seen how regulators have come down on them. So being part of any DAO at any point in time is always going to come with regulatory problems and questions. That's one. The other part you were asking was the question regarding the lead and the organizer and the secretary. I think we can all agree that if they're taking on these roles are not roles that are limited to the meeting itself, to 1 hour per week. These are roles that are ongoing throughout the week. Added to that, the work that they're also doing as members of that circle. So there is a compensation that should be allocated to them for those roles. I think having the lead receive the highest score is fair, because there's going to be a lot expected of them. They're almost going to be on the same level as a delegate, whereas someone else that's executing a lot of responsibilities in terms of keeping that circle productive. And then the secretary and the organizer having the second highest score. I think it's fair. If that needs to be discussed, well, hey, there's a new set of chief delegates that'll come in after this season, and they're free to propose whatever they see fit for this. Which brings me to another point I wanted to bring up, which is fairly important. These bylaws, they don't have to be approved the same day that the chief delegates get elected or the day after. They can be approved 3 weeks before the next election. What we want from this election is for the Eden on EOS community to decide if they are committed to this vision. If they are, they will elect delegates that will also be committed to this vision, and that will ratify these bylaws and will act on these bylaws, and will go forward with a continued effort to maintain the circles that have already been created and establish all of the infrastructure that this organization needs. If that's the case and we can do all of this on paper, then by all means, we're ready to move forward. But more than anything, what we need to see is the commitment of the people getting elected and of the community electing them.
Hey, Mo, just one question.
If I could continue, the point I'm trying to make is that if we look at the amount of money that is being extracted from these circles by these three top positions in each circle, the double dipping of the Fibonacci, the top rankings, and you consider that in the Fibonacci, it's extreme. The top, very top, gets a much larger than the second rank, and so on and so forth. If you do that across the board, and they do it twice, and then you look at what's left from the people that are actually supposed to be the primary.
One thing though.
Hang on.
Correction. Let me just one correction though. You're saying Fibonacci. We're not using the Fibonacci sequence. We're using a scale of 1 to or however many members there are in the group. So it's not that drastic.
Okay, so
At all.
can you be more specific and tell us exactly how the fund is distributed?
Harry, we've had this conversation. You can find it in the purpose paper, but it's essentially, let's say that there's 5 people. If you want an example, if there's 5 people in the group, the lead will get 5 points. Then the other 5, the rest of the other numbers will be attributed to the different people within the group in scale, in ranking. And then proportionally, you will have the funds assigned to each number, depending on the points. I don't know if I explained that well over the phone verbally, but you can see it in writing.
I was taught.
Let me see if I understand. It's like 5 points for the top, 4 points for the next, and then you add up all those points at the end and you divide by how many points you have to determine your percentage of the pool?
Basically.
Cool.
So 5 for the lead, 4 for each of the secretary and the organizer, and then 1 point for each other participant?
No. And then after that, you would go and do the 1 to 5 ranking again. So they would just get those extra 5 points and those extra 4 points added to whatever ranking they have.
It would be really helpful if you created a spreadsheet before the election so people could actually see how this is constructed. And
sure.
Yeah, I would love to see a spreadsheet as well, for sure.
We'll try to do that.
That would be helpful.
The formulas in the dispute resolution are not a dispute resolution in the purpose paper, though. If you go down to that section, you can find it there.
I've got a slightly different question, just back to one of the things you said earlier, Mo, and you mentioned that this is a deliberately risk-on approach. And so I'm just curious, so you're deliberately adding risk to members, and that's, for me, when I see the language of partner mentioned a couple times in the bylaws, where it's deliberately now the term principal partner that members can become depending on their position, general partners, head general partners, I think is the term. And so that does have it's kind of a loaded term, especially for those who live in the US, for example, where there's a lot more scrutiny. I'm just curious, because currently EAD members are sort of there by de facto. So you have a lot of members who aren't active, most certainly, but they are still members. They paid their dues. They agreed to the bylaws at the time. And I'm just wondering if this gets proposed, if this gets passed and put forward, is the expectation, the assumption that all current members are now, they don't get a chance to opt in? Like, they're just, because they haven't been active, too bad, sucks to be you, you're here and you're part of this now just because you are? Or is there a way that maybe there might be a purging of non-opting in members? Because I just feel like to force that risk, that deliberately assumed risk, onto other members who aren't paying as close attention is a bit of a, I don't know, I don't think I necessarily agree with that approach. I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that. It's
a fair question. I think essentially by the way that we're establishing the requirements, it'll create a class of members, active members, and verified members, where they're really who the membership is, what you can find and define as the membership. And the people that may be registered and then forgot about their accounts, eventually they should be redefined. Their membership should be redefined or purged, depending on the requirements that we see fit as a community. I don't know. I mean, as of right now, if you look onto the Eden on EOS website or on the Eden website, you can see that there's 500 active members. I think we all know that that's not an accurate number.
No, I'm just saying, but they are members. So, I mean, there's been lots of comments about the bylaws and code is law, and if the bylaws don't say something, then it's okay. Like, I know, Stephane, you've expressed that viewpoint in the past when you did your masterclass on how to attack Eden. And so there's nothing in the bylaws that says you don't become a member after X number of participation points you have to earn or whatever. There's nothing like that. It's you're a member, you're on the list, you're in the table. So I just don't think you can force risk onto people without, I don't know, removing them. I think you gotta remove the people who aren't there and do them the solid of being like, yeah, you're not here, but we don't want to expose you to this and make you liable because were thoughtful?
Sure. That's a fair question, a fair way to go about it. Goes back to what I mentioned earlier about these bylaws not necessarily having to be ratified immediately as soon as this next election is over and the chief delegates take control, but it can be ratified 2.5 months down the line before the next election, and basically ratify them 3 weeks before the next election, propose the next updated bylaws 1 week before the next election, with all of the updates and changes that need to be made or additions that people see fit to make to these bylaws, and we're good. So it's a very valid proposal.
And just a couple of comments. Aaron doesn't see any risk as an inactive member. You can. That's a risk you can decide to take, I suppose, right? But there's some people who, I guess you could say, this idea of ignorance is bliss, and it's not so blissful. If you look at the Oki DAO as an example, and they did some different things that led to them to being basically sued, and they were treated as an unincorporated partnership. All members who participated in governance on that DAO have all become potentially liable. So there's just an associated risk there, and there is precedent for it. And maybe, to each their own, maybe there is no risk. I just know personally, someone who is paying attention, I definitely won't want to be considered a partner with all of the other Eden members and exposing what I think is risk. There are risks with VC activities. There's a lot to that, and I've done some work as a VC now, and I understand a lot more based on that. And there is risk there. And so, but to each their own, if it's not a risk, I just don't think it's fair to force others who aren't being privy to this conversation due to their own lack of paying attention. It's fine, but it's still, I think,
Are you going to leave Eden if this proposal passes? And is that a promise?
For you, Stephane, of course I'll make that promise. Yeah, I for sure will leave. Yeah, I don't want to be a partner with you. Not a chance.
All right. Are you running in the election, Chris?
I haven't decided yet. Are you?
For sure.
Oh,
I still haven't been elected. I definitely need to get elected at least once.
I got to do whatever I can to stop you. So I guess I'll run then too.
I understand. See you on the battlefield, sir.
Well, this is all meant to be a community. I'd like to see people coming together here, not going to war. So to answer Chris a little bit, as I was saying earlier, I think it's important to have the regulatory concerns addressed so people can assess that risk one way or the other before the next election. Not this coming one, but the next one.
One thing I'll look forward to before the election, and hopefully not just before the election, is that those numbers, that spreadsheet that shows who's getting paid what, and get kind of a big picture of how much money is going to people that weren't elected, right? What percentage of the money is actually going to the leads, the secretaries, and the organizers that weren't elected. That's, I think, that is a big change, I think. And I don't know those numbers, but I suspect it's not insignificant. And I don't really understand why we're diverging from that. For me, it just creates moral hazard where you're starting to create these like insulations between the elected, somebody who's elected, and somebody who's actually fulfilling the job itself. I don't think that's positive, but I really would like to see those numbers to see what we're.
Well, if you read the purpose paper, you can see that leads are appointed by the chief delegates for newly created circles, but any circle that is not newly created. The first order of business in the first meeting of that season's circle is that they elect a lead. So it's an elected position for any ongoing circle.
The elected by who?
By the members of that circle, the people that show up on that first meeting.
Okay, but not by the members. That's what I'm referring to.
Well, the members elected the delegates that established the circles, and they're free to join that circle whenever they please. Those are open circles. Anyone can join them at any time.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's not the same as the members directly electing the individuals.
No, it is. It's the circles are open, and anyone can join that circle. If you're interested in the comms and media circle, you join that circle, and you have your voice heard, electing the lead.
But that's not the same as the members during the election day electing the people who are getting paid.
Did you elect are you electing every single chief delegate?
No, but somebody did within the process.
Within the process, this is part of the process.
Within the election process day, that
Yes.
day.
We're proposing that this is part of the process.
You're saying that the leads get elected during the actual election process. Like, for example,
No, the day after the first meeting of that circle, the lead gets elected. You hold elections, and the lead gets elected. If you want to participate in every single circle and have and elect a lead in every single circle on that first day, you're free to do so.
And
I mean, if we understand that there's a degree of rational ignorance that happens, as we were just discussing with Chris about people not paying attention to what's going on in Eden, as of right now, there's a lot of people that haven't been paying attention to what's been going on in these circles. But here we are, and we've come a long way. We've got a fund distribution summary that's being published tomorrow that will do a summary of all of the distribution that happened from the first day of Eden, so that we can look back and see where the funding has gone, how much money Eden has put into the EOS ecosystem, and how much value has created for the EOS ecosystem, which is quite a bit. So, all of these things are worthwhile, and there's a lot of rational ignorance that's going on, and it's understandable. You can't be in everything, but here we are. The bylaws, same thing. We've been crafting these bylaws from the beginning. So at this point, and we've been holding the strategy groups. I mean, you've been part of a lot of this, so the work that's gone into this.
I have, and I have been there. Yes, I've been listening. And not necessarily agreeing and directing you guys in a different direction, but I still attended, even though the direction is not where I was hoping.
And it's appreciated. We wanted to get all kinds of members in these groups and voicing their opinions and taking it into account. And we've taken your opinions into account as well, Per. We really appreciate them. And hopefully in the next season, in this coming season, we can have a lot more active members expressing their opinions and helping shape the direction of Eden on EOS.
Well, that's amazing that you say that, because if people watch the videos, they will see me being censored by yourself and Lenny and Patrick. So I'm sorry you said that.
No, I think you do a great job victimizing and censoring yourself. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's not accurate, Mo. I'm sorry. That's not accurate.
Well,
so for me, I think this is going to create an obstacle for people to comprehend the rules. It's a bit of a rat's nest, and it's going to create a need for a dispute resolution that is untested, and which is going to throw people into this dispute resolution process, and we're going to be resolving disputes over unclear bylaws, and it's just going to create a giant sucking sound in our ecosystem. I recommended that we go in an opposite direction, that we simplify our approach. We focus on the Eden fractal process itself, recognizing it as the thing that is unique to our community, unique to our process, and putting that in on a mantle, so to speak, and doing everything we can to maximize the utility from that, treating it like an engine
Yeah, if the idea is to try different things and experiment.
Excuse me, Mo. And using that in the context, given that we now have Haifa available to us, using Haifa for housekeeping, which is it's an amazing UI, but keeping the actual compensation decision making within the fractal process, purely within the fractal process, including any roles, all of that. That would be the approach that I would take, and I think we went in the opposite direction, and we've created a lot of very complicated, overcomplicated systems, and it's not something that I don't think this is an approach that a software developer would take. They would do a more incremental approach. They would start with something far simpler and get the basics down, and then once you have the basics worked out, they would begin to add to that. And I think this is just, we've spread ourselves so thin on this. I think it's really the wrong approach. And however, I give you and Mo and Patrick, who's not elected, but I give the three of you A+ for effort. You guys were there for all the meetings that I attended, and I attended a lot. I know you've put a ton of work into this, so I'm not going to criticize. I'm not here to criticize your effort, but the result, I think, is bringing us in the wrong direction.
And what's great about Eden is everyone is free to express their opinions on Saturday, and we'll see what the community ends up deciding. All right, we're just beyond the 2-hour mark. At this point, we can open up the stage for the open mic discussion. If you've got updates, topics, questions, off-topic banter, whatever it is, feel free to jump on. We can continue talking about Eden as well. No problems there.
Yeah, can I just add something real quick? Because for my end, I'm probably going to go in a little bit. But let me just say that it's really important that everyone here register through the Telegram upvote bot, the Eden upvote bot, which will simplify the elections a great deal. And the idea is that you have the upvote bot on one side of your screen and the Eden OS or the Eden UI on the other, the website on the other. And through both of them, it'll create a much smoother election experience. So I urge everyone to do that, and I believe you guys have till 12 UTC Friday to register.
Yeah, there's just over 50 people registered so far. I think it was 54 when I checked earlier today. Let's see here. Did we get some new signups during the Fireside? 52 signed up so far, in case you're curious. Anyways, thank you very much, Mo, for joining us on the Fireside and answering all of our questions. And yeah, thanks to you and as well, Lenny, for all of the work that obviously went into this new proposal. Like I said, I like it. It feels like it's solid in terms of game theory. The incentives seem well thought out, and looking forward to see how it all shakes out on Saturday during the election.
Well, thank you, Stephane.
Do you hear me, Stephane?
I think we have Patrick talking in the background.
Yes, I hear you, Patrick. I've not muted you yet today.
Thank you. I just want to say to all this discussion, Okay, so Lenny and Mo have made a good job on this term.
Can't hear.
You are here?
Yeah, if you can speak a bit louder or maybe closer to your mic. You're coming in a bit low.
Okay. Check. Do you hear me better?
Yes.
I just want to say to be
Yeah, baby, yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say I was there since the day of after the election already. I am not a delegate level 1 on this term, and that doesn't matter. I have been committed and closely following what was happening in every call, and I want to shout out Mo and Lenny for their calm and always able to explain the things how they are, and not how some people want to think how that should be and speculate. So all is well written into the document. That's a document that are with flow charts, very well made by CIC, shout out to him. And every people that has been involved closely and making videos, Twitter engagement, we were like a team. And I loved that. I'm very excited for this election on Saturday with Lovejoy doing the Master of Ceremony. Shout out to Lovejoy. And I am happy to see people very committed and not only doing promises and not coming just with a specific project for themselves, but coming with something cohesive for Hidden on EOS. For EOS indeed. Hidden on EOS. That's not hidden. That's not Miracle Animal Book. That's not all that. That's a worker proposal system with an embedded data governance in it, with people that take action and do, and go to fractal meetings to show what they have made week after week, with KPIs, cockpit will be made, I will do. Also, if I am not elected, also if I am not a delegate level 1, I don't care. I am just happy with this Hidden on EOS, how is it going, and those bylaws, purpose paper, and dispute resolution process. That's the result of a strategy workshop with Gabriel Shaw that has joined and helped us. So the bylaws are the outcome. That's not just a document to make a document. That's made of a mission, a purpose, a mission, and values, how we can help EOS, and how we can collaborate together. So shout out to Lenny, shout out to Mo. And the people that have not joined the meetings, maybe they have at least see the calls or read the documents. And every opinion is good when you have read and make the job to understand. And thank you, Stephane, for your good questions, because you're a poker guy. We see that, and you ask the right questions. I'm very happy. So go on next election.
I'm always happy when you say I'm a poker guy.
I know. But
going on right now, day 1C.
Yeah, join on 12 UTC already on Saturday, because there will be AMA, some questions. Today there was an AMA. There was just 4 of us joining, but that's okay. And by the way, it's into the Telegram. You can see the video. So good job. And go EOS.
Thank you, Patrick. And go EOS. All right, last call. Anyone want to jump on stage? Now's the time to do it.
Yes! My grandmother stated one day, you cannot give water to a camel that doesn't want to drink. So I leave at that. Thank you.
I think we need to implement an upvote mechanism from the PopBot so that everyone can vote on whether or not we need to mute Patrick from time to time. I feel like I don't want to be the one doing it. you know? Just kidding, Patrick. Love the engagement, love the contributions. But it's fun teasing you a bit.
Yeah, if you want to give a chance to Perry to jump on and making shit, that's the right way to do.
Love you too, Patrick.
And there we go. Patrick got server muted. Let's not let things escalate here. All right.
And now he's pushing is the news. Oh, CIC has made that. Yeah, the news
He
is the
didn't
new.
he didn't even know I muted him. Jeez.
He's the new god. The news is the new god. He's doing nothing, but he's bullshit every people.
Okay, Patrick. Let's keep it positive.
Yeah, but I say the truth. I am
It's
not
okay.
an
Yeah,
I
it's
am not
okay
an
to share your
hypocrite.
opinion. It's okay to share opinion, but you know, rehashing the same thing over and over, I don't know how valuable really that is at this point.
Yeah, I know. That's good to say.
All right. I guess we're gonna wrap it up here before things escalate more. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks to our guest speakers. Thanks to everyone who participated in the discussions. And until next week, let's go.
Thank you, CIC. Go EOS, Mel.